You know, it's interesting. And hi, everybody. By the way, it's showtime. It's Friday, and we've got Stephanie A. Smith. We've got Tony live from Las Vegas. And obviously Brian, who's not amused with the Cleveland Guardians, and we have a special way to start out the program, I think, and I think this should be working, but it's not. So boy, this is crazy. So I'm gonna stop the screen, and no, it just completely went away. The whole thing, everything I worked on just went away, just like that.
Your Mr. Stay Puffed is no more?
Yeah, well, let me do this. I'm sorry that the show's beginning this way, but it's too late for me to start over. And I want this to occur. Consequently, I'm going to have to do this differently. Okay, there's that. All right. This is not nearly as easy as it should be, and I would like it to be more streamlined. Bang and bang and bang. And now, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, we're going to try to do this. Okay. Here we go, I think.
Cute visual, but I hear no sound.
Well, then it doesn't work.
I hate it when shit doesn't work.
It's ruining the effect here, folks. Believe me, it's ruining the effect. Now we have neither. I don't know what in the heck they've done to this, but they've changed it and made it worse. But somehow that doesn't surprise me, because that seems to be the way it is.
I hate it when upgrades are really a downgrade.
You got that right. And again, we have to do the exact same thing. I don't know. It should be sharing audio. It really should be doing that, but it's not. So.
And now we can play Foursquare.
Don't you love technology?
And where would this be now on the computer? It would be on the desktop, would it not?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're going to try it this way.
I hear sound.
Oh, fuck my life.
Shut it out, but I can't hear a word you say. Talking loud, not saying much. I'm criticized, but all your bullets ricochet. You shoot me down, but I get up. I'm bulletproof, nothing to lose. Fire away, ricochet, you take your aim. Fire away, you shoot me down, but I won't fall. I am titanium.
This is the new theme song
You
for
shoot
the
me
season for the
down,
Cleveland
but I
Browns.
won't fall.
With a
I am
new image of hope.
titanium. Cut me down, but it's you who'll have further to fall. Ghost town, haunted love.
Where's Simon Calvin's weeping?
All right. I mean, there's only so much a man can take. You know what I mean?
That person has an amazing voice. I loved it.
Somewhere Simon Cowell is weeping. Thank you, Rick May.
Yeah, but we do seriously have a special guest who's been really, really, really patient. Yeah, because this took longer than I expected it to take, and we're gonna, add him to the stream right away. And Stay Puff Daddy is the new symbol of hope, and he's on the broadcast with us as well in so many different ways and in so many different forms. He is the replacement for the white cow of hope. Here he is in all of his glory, Stay Puff Daddy, whose white, bright, smiling face and hat and his sheer puffiness gives him reason to believe that the Cleveland Browns are going to be a really good football team this year, and we really have a lot to look forward to. So you'll be seeing more of him, and this is his antagonist if you're new to the program, and the two of them will be butting heads quite a bit during the course of the season.
But why can't Ebony and Ivory live together in perfect harmony? Why the antagonism? Why?
Side by side on my piano keyboard. My Lord, why can't we? Why can't we? Why? Why can't? Okay, enough of that. Gave me a headache. All right. So that is the optimistic beginning of our show. And that's as positive as it's going to get, folks, because this was the trade deadline for Major League Baseball. And if you're following the Cleveland Guardians, who aren't even worthy of being called Indians anymore, the Guardians live in a different house, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to TP their house in a completely different way. The Guardians really made some fantastic trades. I mean, the first thing that you do is that your second baseman doesn't want to play for your team I sound like Jeff Foxworthy, when he refuses to put his glove on the ground and lets the ball go under his glove. He doesn't want to play for you when he suddenly changes his swing and all he does is hit home runs and he's hitting 205 for the season. All right? That's part of the other way, He's playing for a contract. And you have to get rid of him. And if you're the Cleveland Indians and all of your wisdom, you say, hey, who wants this guy? And everyone goes, except the team that you're competing with in your own division, and you hand him over to the Chicago White Sox, admitting once and for all to me, they're a bunch of cocksucking losers in the organization, and I don't want to have anything to do with this group of people. Look at the moves that they made, and God, the moves that they made.
Jagger?
No, they're not like Jagger. They're like the jagged bowel movements that I make. They're terrible. These are the worst moves that I've ever seen, probably since Donna Summer tried to do the robot. These are terrible, terrible moves. Terrible. Yeah. I can't argue with getting rid of some of these people, but why did we get Eddie Rosario in the first place, Tony?
I have no idea. Traded him for Pablo Sandoval, who I didn't even know was still in the league.
34 years old, overweight, chronically fat, and unable to play.
Could just
Pablo
immediately
Sandoval.
cut the guy. What the fuck? What?
They gave him away for nothing because they knew they weren't going to resign him. And here's the thing. Nobody wants to play for Cleveland. No, if you get traded there, you have to go there, right? You have to.
Yeah.
You got no fucking choice. But, so we traded Eddie Rosario, who barely got to play because he was injured all year. And finally, Jordan Luplow is gone. He's 27 years old, but might as well be 72. I'm dyslexic, you see. He hit 173, which makes him a better hitter than both catchers that we have. But Jordan had this ankle injury, and it's part of what they call Chisenhall syndrome, okay? Which means the injury never goes away. And it kept coming back and biting him in the ass. So, and they got rid of Phil Maton, which really makes me happy, and a minor league catcher to get Miles Straw. Now, Miles Straw is a guy who to be very honest with you. 262 hitter this year for the Astros. He's got no power. He's a center fielder. So, I mean, and last year he had a 207. So, hey, give it up. We got another Bradley Zimmer. Okay. Great news for all Guardian fans. And we were all soothed. Go ahead.
Did you already talk about the Caesar trade?
Yeah. That's like from the salad days now. I started out with that. Yeah. Caesar salad. Forget it. I mean, we gave him away, and to me, it's incredible. You don't get shit for anything, and you're just unloading the previous mistakes you made. And you just told the White Sox, okay, you own this for the next couple of years. It's all yours, and we're not going to be competitive. And that's how you run a bad business, you know? There's something called reloading, and there's something called rebuilding. And 2 of the 3 Cleveland franchises in sports are in constant rebuild because they can't get anything done. We'll get to the Cavaliers in just a minute. So the Indians' answer to all of these problems is, don't worry, we've got Owen Miller to play second base. And that's really going to be a tremendous double play combination. Ahmed Rosario to Owen Miller to the dugout. Like, I need this shit. So, yeah, I can't say anything good. By the way, Miles Straw, if you're wondering, his career, and if you want to call it that, he is only 26, which means he's never going to get any better. This year, he hit a 262. He had 17 stolen bases. He can run, but he has no power. 2 home runs, 34 runs batted in. These figures, and he played for Houston, would be the best outfield figures that we have. And what does that tell you? And how much faith do the Indians have in Bradley Zimmer and him playing Hopalong Cassidy, going after fly balls? And, you're going to see Mercado gotten rid of. You're going to see all of these horrible, horrible mistakes going away one at a time, but slowly in slow bleed fashion. So the headline on Cleveland.com, and this is incredible. Don't trade Jose Ramirez for the sake of fans. They don't care about the fans. Would you wake up, please? Don't trade Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez doesn't want to be in Cleveland. He doesn't. Even Stay Puff Daddy knows that. Look at him. He's hopeful. He's always hopeful. He has a beaming smile. Look at him. I mean, a winning personality. And they did this guy wrong in Ghostbusters. I just want to say they misrepresented him. This is a figure of hope. This is not like some Jurassic Park thing or some horrible King Kong thing running around in the wild. This is the Stay Puft guy. He's soft-hearted. He's a marshmallow. And he's having trouble staying positive about the Indians. That's right, Rick. He could be the top guy in the team, is right. He'd be fighting it out with the non-tradable Ramirez. Yeah. Actually, it's for the Indians or the Guardians, s'mores of the same. While we're punning and having a good old time. Yeah. So please don't trade Jose Ramirez, but they will. Of course they will. Uh-huh. They couldn't trade, Lindor and they'll probably stay with this guy as long as they can and get nothing for him. And then another team will become a big player and bidder and all of it. And we'll just sit there. And it isn't just me. You're going to say, well, you're just unduly negative, Mr. Muhead. Terry Francona don't want to come back. If you didn't hear what he said, you're missing the point. All of a sudden, there's this Zoom call from the Indians brass, so that all of the Paul Hoyneses of the world can sit there and go and drool on themselves. Thanks for the call, Paul. Yeah. Francona, Gone for the rest of the year because of health issues. I mean, it's, you know.
But we saw this coming from last year.
Well, I mean, I'm the first one who said, get out. Get away from this. It's unhealthy. You're with a lousy organization, a bozo front office. Get out of here. Take a year off baseball. Be done with that. Get your health together and get these procedures that you need done. And then wait for a good team to hire you. And you will win again because you're a good manager. Here's what Francona said in the Zoom call. He said, I want to love my job. Now, you got to read between the lines here. I want to love my job, he said. You guys have been around me long enough to know I'm not talking about a loss or a win. I'm talking about the challenges that come with the job. I'm just not able right now to physically do what I think needs to be done. I haven't lost the love of the game or the love of our team or the people in it. If anything, I know I care more today than I ever did. The relationships have grown and they've gotten stronger. I've got to get healthy or I can't do this job. It's like one step at a time. Now, I will caption this for you and rephrase it. I want to love my job, Francona said, but these assholes in the front office have made it impossible for me to love this job. I'm not talking about a loss or a win. I'm talking about 162 games of this nonsense. I'm just not able to do the job right now. I haven't lost the love of the game, which means I'll be back managing. I don't want anyone to get the idea that I don't love managing anymore. I love being a manager, but of a major league team. I didn't sign on for Columbus. Okay? That's what he's really saying. By the way, he's having his left hip replaced at the Cleveland Clinic. He had his right hip replaced in 2016. And so he also has 2 artificial knees.
So are you saying that AAA teams don't amuse him either?
Right. I mean, this is just a guy who's just looking to get the hay out. And I don't blame him. I would use anything within my power to get out of this situation. It's unhealthy. Now, he says following the hip surgery, he could have a rod implanted in his left foot in 5 to 6 weeks. 10 weeks of non-weight bearing activity will follow. There will be more time on crutches and in a walking boot. I've got some work ahead of me, said Francona, and I'm not going to be ready for next year. You know, I'm just not going to be ready. And here's the great quote from Chris Antonetti. You got to love this. It's amazed me that Tito's been able to make it this far in light of all the things he's been battling. You are what he's battling most, Chris. Oh, for God's sakes, make this stop. Just make it stop. 21 years as a big league manager, and this is what he has to do. And you know, there's only, besides Stay Puft Daddy, there's only one happy guy in the whole thing, you know? You know, in me, Maniac, and I just want to say this. Eventually, Cleveland Indian, being manager of Cleveland Indian, will destroy any man. I come to you today with a heavy heart because I want him to do well. But it is impossible to do well with these assholes. That's right. I just
Did
gave
he suddenly
it to
turn
you,
into
Rick.
Guy Ledouche?
Yeah, it's just it's really difficult. It's difficult to be a fan of a team that's going absolutely nowhere, right? And if you want team number 2 that's going absolutely nowhere, it's the interchangeable, movable parts Cleveland Cavaliers, who did Tony a big favor by getting Ricky Rubio out of Minnesota for a second time.
For nothing in return. Thank you so much. Torian, I do have to. Is Torian Prince anything?
Is Torian Prince anything? You know, Torian Prince can play some defense, but I think that he lacks quicks. You know who he reminds me of? Is kind of like a Jay Crowder kind of guy. He can hit some threes. And he can go through periods where the shot is off, and then he can get hot. So he's streaky, and he plays some defense, but his foot speed isn't really good enough. Like Crowder, who really works hard on defense but lacks foot speed. Everything's becoming about foot speed in the NBA, and I think that Taurean Prince just didn't fit into the Cavaliers' long-term plans. Could he be an effective player off the bench somewhere? Yeah, he could be a contributor. He could be a role player. But, is he better than Ricky Rubio? Yeah, because he might serve a purpose as a wing. Yeah. Ricky Rubio, it's like, buying a car and with, 2 flat tires. I mean, I don't know what it's like. Did somebody respond
and no
to me?
spare.
I went on Twitter and I said, this is really what we needed, is a 34-year-old aging point guard who can't shoot from behind the arc. And a guy says, he filled Delly's role. And I'm going, you stupid fuck! That's exactly what I was saying. Have you ever heard of upgrading? God almighty, this is not good. Ricky Rubio. Hi, Key. How are you? Yeah, I got the Naked Gun reference to White Courtesy Phone.
That was also an Airplane.
Yeah. No, it was an Airplane. You're right. Yeah. Then you have the only team, and so I'll mention Evan Mobley and say that I'm not going to criticize taking Mobley at 3. He's young. He's not filled out. The word is that the Cavaliers are going to actually bring. I have to rethink twice. Are they still the Cavaliers? Yes, they are. The Cavaliers are going to bring Jared Allen back, it looks like, to play center, and they're going to start with Mobley on the wing. And so what they're going to try to do is Twin Towers, but Towers with a guy who has more athletic ability that could get up and down the floor. So that's the plan. Now the thing is that the guy still only shot like 32% from 3 in college, and Evan Mobley's very young, and he's going to get pushed around. And I think the reason they want to start him at the 4 is because we don't have a wing, first of all. And second of all, because he's a little bit light in the britches because he's young and he's not filled out. So he'd get pushed around. He's going to get out positioned for rebounds by power forwards in the league, let alone centers. So that's the thought process. But I'm not going to criticize because he does have raw materials. But the thing is, what are you putting around him? And so here's what we know. I mean, we have our starting point guard, which is wonderful, Darius Garland. And backing him up is Ricky Rubio. Then the Colin Sexton thing, what it really does is it makes you wonder why Isaac Okoro was even drafted, you see. Because if they're going to start a 7-footer at the wing at the 4, then, and Okoro proved he was too small and out physical to play a 3, then who's going to be the starting scoring guard? And if you get rid of Sexton, what are you going to get rid of him for? And then Okoro can't score like Sexton. So none of this makes any sense whatsoever to me. So
I don't know if they've got plans for small forward and free agency or what the deal is, but if you put Sexton and Rubio on the court at the same time, you're gonna fucking see deficits balloon from 5 points to 20 points in a big hurry.
Well, what you're gonna see is people. You can play way off Rubio because he's not going to make anything from distance, and teams are going to pack the paint. That's what's going to happen. And again, you got to have. It's really hard right now in the NBA. You got to have speed. You got to have shooting. You got to have athleticism. And I understand why the Cavaliers would have picked Mobley. I thought it was really interesting that Jalen Green, who went number 2, said, I'm not working out for the Cavaliers. Nobody wants to play in Cleveland. Nobody wants to come to this team. The team is
No, that's
rudderless.
LeBron James. No. Hell no.
I think the whole situation is rudderless. I don't think Dan Gilbert's running this team. I don't know who in the hell is, but I don't get the feeling that there is any real palpable presence. And one thing I'll say, I mean, and historically people know that Dan Gilbert, I don't particularly like the way he does business. And that was more, not so much in a basketball sense, but in a Quicken Loans kind of sense. But he spent money and got players on board. Now, we're just one of the many teams who is just pissing away whatever they have and continually getting younger and younger and still winning 25 games a year. And that's what keeps happening year after year. And you can't build and grow, and there is no veteran leadership on the team. And these young guys become extremely despondent when they're used to high school and college careers where they did nothing but win, and all of a sudden they're at the bottom of the heap, and they don't get a single call to go their way. They get physically beat up, and so that's what playing in Cleveland is. And you don't get seen on national television. Nobody knows about you, and all of these are reasons why people don't want to come to play for the Cavaliers. It's a rudderless ship, and they're not in any position next year to be anywhere near the playoffs. Anywhere near the play-in. It just ain't going to happen. We've got a bunch of, and what do? Jetty Osman's still going to be on this fucking team? I mean, really, I could make an argument for euthanasia when it comes to Jetty Osman. Honest to God, he's horrible. He's a human turnover machine. I mean, that's nothing. You can't play players like that. We got a bunch of guys like that. I mean, we're going to sit around and wait for Dylan Windler to get hurt again. You know, we don't have a 3. We don't have a legitimate 3, let alone a stretch 4. We do now, but he's young, and he's going to get a lot of fouls called on him. You know how it's the same cycle for young kids, young players.
It's called the Dan Gilbert Blue Ball Special.
I don't even know that he's calling the shots. I don't know who is, but it's really rather aggravating. And, you know, nobody's going to say that the Cavaliers did badly in drafting Mobley number 3, but nobody's talking about them at all. Everybody's talking about, well, who went 1 and 2, and the fact that Suggs dropped from 4 to 5. It's like there's this big black hole where the Cavaliers are. Nobody even talks about them because there's just no point. And everybody graded the draft and our pick of Mobley as an A or an A plus. I mean, it's all about athleticism, length, upside, the ability to block shots, being a selfless guy. All indications through high school and a freshman year in college is that he is a team player. But what you don't realize is it's hard to keep your enthusiasm playing in an environment that quite literally breeds losing. Very difficult. You know, and then if you're, you know, and I knew that somebody would say something. The fact that Westbrook is going to the Lakers, this is just more of the same with the NBA. It's the survival of the fattest. And, you know, they got the fattest payroll. And they want that Los Angeles team back in the scheme of things because I'll be honest with you. There's no way that the Milwaukee Bucks are a dynasty, okay? They'll be a dinosaur before they're a dynasty. And they don't want that little fucking brewery town. They don't want that to represent the league. They've got to try to squeeze something for LeBron. And, you know, it's kind of like when an old guy finally has to concede and either use a walker or a wheelchair. You know, LeBron James needs help. Just being him and someone else. 2, now they got to have a big 3 around LeBron and prop him up. And what did they give away? They gave away nothing. Kyle Kuzma, did you see? I mean, without LeBron James on the floor, Kyle Kuzma is a 30% shooter. He doesn't get the open looks and he can't create his own. They gave away really nothing to get Russell Westbrook, except they got to pay him. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the Lakers fighting, duking it out in the West. And the Suns, if you're a Phoenix fan like Brian is, you're just sitting there saying, well, it's kind of obvious what the league wants.
Right.
But I said that even during all throughout the playoff run, and especially in the finals, the league needed Giannis to win the title, to be the next superstar that they've been pimping out for the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, he won.
And he's never done anything up to this point in the playoffs.
Well, it's not gonna be them.
So now they
winning
have a
multiple
young
championships.
superstar going against LeBron.
Yeah, but you see, he can't carry it himself. And the thing is, if it weren't for Drew Holiday and Middleton, they would not have won. Flat out. Those 3 guys, but there's nothing beyond them. If you think Bobby Portis is going to carry you for another season, guess again. I mean, that's a real good feel-good story, just like it was for us when we won the championship. But it wasn't going to be
But looking
like
at the
multiple
West-
championships in Cleveland. No.
But looking at the East, they have an easy path to getting 50 wins and being a number 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna.
So,
But the question is whether they can carry through the playoffs again. I don't think that the league wants to be represented by Milwaukee, Wisconsin, any more than they wanted to be represented by Cleveland, Ohio. I just think that it's a good feel-good story, and it's a
they
good
don't-
way that they can point and say, "See, anybody can win in the NBA."
they don't give a shit about the city. They give a shit about the player. That's all that they're every ad, that's what they're pumping. Players.
I mean, do you really think that the Milwaukee Bucks forums are exploding like the Cleveland forums did when LeBron came back to Cleveland? Fuck no. Fuck no. I mean, Giannis has been there, and they finally got it done because it was either them or the Suns, and really, who gives a fuck? Phoenix or Milwaukee? Is that going to be what represents the league as far as what they want? No, they're not going to be happy until they have New York and Los Angeles and somebody who can become the next dynasty that they can just really pimp hard. They got to rebuild the Lakers. LeBron is getting a little long in the tooth, and they need to bring in whatever they need to bring in and constantly rebuild that franchise. They have from the 1960s to the present. It has never stopped in Los Angeles, and it's not going to stop. I'm just saying the reason nobody's climbing on board the Milwaukee Bucks bandwagon is because the buck literally stops here. It's not going to happen again.
Maybe not for another 50 years.
Yeah, but it's great. I mean, look, either one of those teams, I wanted the Suns to win personally, but either one of those teams winning, I was happy to see that finals because anything that the others weren't involved in, that's great.
Well,
The big city's
and
not
I got
in it.
my and I got my wish because there were no LA teams and no New York teams.
Right. So I mean,
And they
for
could,
people
they
who
could
are
literally
our
fuck off
persuasion,
to their respective oceans, and I would be perfectly happy with that.
I mean, I'm just
Because
happy
that's
with
about 40 million Democrats going right into the fucking water.
and we're not going there. I told you we're not going there. 35 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. So what we have from the Browns, I mean, every indication that Baker Mayfield is showing a high degree of comfort in the early stages of training camp. That's good. We got a couple of people back. We had a little twisted ankle for Rashard Higgins, and he came back out to play today in front of the fans, and OBJ was back out there. So far, nothing tragic has happened, unlike the Indianapolis Colts. And the Indianapolis...
The biggest deal was Ward going off with, Williams going off with heat injury or
heat exhaustion.
heat exhaustion.
Right. And,
So-
and anytime you're going to keep an eye on him just because, I mean, he could go down at any minute. He's kind of like the
A
Titanic.
strong
when you're
gust of
watching
wind
the
blows
movie.
him into the parking lot.
Yeah. I don't know what to think about Greedy Williams, but I don't want him to get hurt. Obviously, we need all the depth we can get in our secondary. But the Indianapolis Colts, Carson Wentz pulled up lame, and they don't know what the explanation is, but something is apparently wrong with his foot. And
Or ankle.
yeah, and I've said this a gazillion times. When you get your ACL repaired, or anything else, and you're trying to, when you're dealing with surgeries that are long-term healing things, whether it's ACLs, whether it's Achilles tendons, or even like when you tear a pec muscle, these things, because of the collisional nature of the sport, are kind of hard to recover from. And Carson Wentz has just not been the same since the knee went, and now in a non-contact scenario, he pulls up lame. And the Colts, it's like, oh God. I mean, it's gone from Andrew Luck injury to, God help their souls, Jacoby Brissett. And now that they're hoping for, really being able to get this guy, Carson Wentz, back up with the people who brought him along in Philadelphia. And there's no word. I hope it's not serious, but these are the types of things when, in a non-contact setting, when somebody pulls up lame, you really get scared. And that would be a disaster early on. And that would be about the worst thing that could happen. I want to point something out. And I'm not going to talk about this for any great length, but the Cleveland Browns have declared, according to Andrew Berry, that over 90% of their players have started the vaccination process. 100% of the team's coaching and support staff are vaccinated, and over 90% of the team's players are either fully vaccinated or finishing out the last stages of the process after a second injection. Quote from Andrew Berry: I want to start by saying how proud I am of our organization for navigating everything through the pandemic. We realize it's not over, but we do see a light at the end of the tunnel. But I don't mean, again, to be a spoiler, but the numbers coming out of Massachusetts suggest something quite different. And when I am incorrect about something, unlike a lot of people I know, I am willing to acknowledge that when science says we have a problem, we have a problem. If you haven't been following what's happening in the state of Massachusetts, the mass gatherings out on Cape Cod, and I spent a lot of time on Cape Cod when I went to UMass. And so I know the areas in P-Town, Provincetown. Nobody calls it Provincetown. Everyone calls it P-Town. At the very end of the Cape, the northeastern extreme of Cape Cod, there were a bunch of 4th of July gatherings of large crowds. And they are stating that 74% of the people who are COVID positive were breakthrough cases and already vaccinated. All right? That is being reported not by some goofy blogger or something like that. This is coming from multiple sources, including the ones you wouldn't expect it to be coming from, CNBC and the Washington Post, okay? This is stuff that is of great concern because it questions how valid the vaccine is towards stopping the variant. Now, with that
Which is
said,
what I've been saying all along.
you
Isn't
didn't
that
know that.
amazing?
You didn't know that. The fact is that I wait for facts before I say something. And the problem...
I'll believe Rich Eisen, who had the vaccine, who had COVID before, and got COVID again.
Yeah, and we don't know what Rich Eisen was doing when he got it. He may have been on the bottom of a human pyramid, for all I know. I do know how the people in Massachusetts got it. They were in massive group gatherings celebrating the 4th of July. So there is two sides of the issue. And I want to be fair because this, and I never believed that the vaccine was a full protection. I wouldn't go out and neither, Rocks or I go out in massive public areas because they're different viruses. They may have originated on the same platform, but the Delta variant's different than the original COVID. And again, there are no guarantees if you are running amok in a crowded group that you're not going to catch it. Now, nobody in Massachusetts, the death rate is ridiculously low. But the CDC now has come out and said that there are questions that older people could still be at extreme risk for death from the variant. So it sounds a lot like it was last year. And it sounds to me, if I were to analyze what I'm reading, that the vaccine is something that if you're younger and stronger and you took that vaccine, it may help protect you. But the greatest protection is still going to be not to go back to the old normal because y'all are going to get it. That's what it's telling me. And that's not a good thing. Not a good thing for professional sports. And it makes a much more difficult decision because what I talked about on my last show, specifically, last two shows, about mandating a vaccine in the NFL, it's going to be very difficult to keep the genie in the bottle if you don't control the players' activities and how they're hanging out in groups. That's going to be the prime determinant. It's not like you can take 2 shots and be exempt. And that's going to hurt. It's really going to hurt professional sports. It's going to hurt society at large. And the fact of the matter is, I feel bad about anyone who dies. Okay, Amsterdam? I think the smart thing to do was to give it a whirl and give it a chance rather than do nothing. And not to go in crowded areas. I think those are the smart, higher percentage things to do. The fact is, it's the crowds and putting yourself into a high-risk situation with crowds that is going to be the single greatest factor in the spread of this thing. And boy, you're going to have full football stadiums, and it's not going to pan out. And that's just, it's not what I wanted to be reading, but I do believe what I'm reading. And I do believe that the CDC, unlike, I don't believe that they are, I don't think they've gone about this perfectly by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that their design was to do the best they could to get rid of this thing. But I think that it's not working. Say, as a matter of fact, we're going to see in the next 2 months that it's not working, and there's going to be a lot of people who get sick from this. And I'm sorry to say that as we get ready for football season, it's like, here we go again. It's deja vu or deja mu all over again. So I just wanted to put that in because when I'm wrong about something, I'll say I'm wrong about it. And that's what differentiates me from the polarized people who can never take a backward step and admit that they're wrong. I would say, as far as the Cleveland Browns are concerned, after dashing and pouring cold water over all of this situation, that the offense looks like you'd expect it to look like, guys playing together. Even Anthony Schwartz, for God's sakes, had one drop, but he looked good. I think Baker Mayfield understands who he's working with. They said that Jarvis Landry looks leaner. He looks like he's carrying. He
had an
less
unbelievable
weight.
one-handed catch.
He's a tremendous receiver. But, again, he's old, 28, 29. He's taken a lot of punishment. But I think that Baker Mayfield understands now his targets, and he's got to get on that wavelength with OBJ. And OBJ said something that was very interesting. OBJ doesn't believe that his presence would have single-handedly beaten the Kansas City Chiefs, but he did say there's that one play. And that really is the whole explosion of that player. If he catches 3 passes in a game, but one of them is a 75-yard bomb, then he's going to catch over 100 yards worth of passes. And we never got to see that breakaway effort when we needed it against the Chiefs. And we're going to get to see some of that this year. And we have our pieces all together. And it isn't about being on the field every play and calling for the ball every play, but it's so important to have a potential game breaker on the field that can really score a big play when somebody lets their guard down. And I think that's what we're hoping for in OBJ. And I think he's come to grips with that. I think he's going to be a good player for us this year. After that, I question if the Browns do really well. You never know. A guy like that, he'll J.R. Smith you. He'll have one season where he really focuses, and then it's right back to the same shit that it was before. And this is right, Best Impact. Donovan Peoples-Jones is also looking very much more comfortable, and it's starting to look more, shall we say, like Rashard Higgins and DPJ are comfortable on the field with Baker Mayfield, and that you're going to see no drop off in production when these guys are on and off the field. And it gives somebody like Anthony Schwartz, who is now being acknowledged as not even being 6 foot tall, which is interesting, which is contrary to what was being said during the draft. But it's going to give him an opportunity to just be a gadget play guy for now, or to catch the ball in open space and the quick bubble screens, and to see if you can get him running with the ball and building up speed. And he doesn't have to worry because we have other guys in camp who are really going to play the majority of the downs.
And his competition is really Felton.
Who? Anthony Schwartz?
Yeah.
No, if Anthony Schwartz can't make it as a
Because-
wide receiver, he's flat out of work. If he can't catch the ball. Demetric Felton is a guy who can carry the ball from scrimmage and can play out of the slot. With the number of receivers the Browns are carrying, it's doubtful that Demetric Felton is going to be used as a receiver, but there may be sets that are implemented by Stefanski that lead people to believe that he's coming out of the backfield to catch passes. He can be used as a decoy, and he does have speed for end arounds and misdirection plays. So another guy.
Well, and they were both up for returns as well.
Well, I never saw that. I don't see Anthony Schwartz being put on the field, a guy that you draft to be a big play guy, whose biggest weakness right now is that he doesn't catch the ball as well as he should, doesn't qualify as I would say that Demetric Felton and Dearness Johnson are going to be the two guys who are going to be fighting, and JoJo Natson, I shouldn't forget him too. These are going to be the people who are going to get a look-see during the preseason. I think Dearness Johnson is going to be bye-bye, and I think he will be picked up by another NFL team because he does nice work. And then from there, it comes down to if JoJo Natson can stay healthy, because he's very, very, very small and could, get hit and hurt pretty easily. If Schwartz gets on the field enough to have 300 yards, this is the question. And you got to go with people.
Well, 17 games is that's a lot of football.
Yeah, it's true. And, I guess I'm looking at this as saying that Austin Hooper is going to be much more familiar with the system, the quarterback, and the quarterback with him. And he's going to catch more passes this year. And we know that Stefanski likes to throw to tight ends. That's important. We know that Landry is going to have his usual number of catches if he stays healthy, and that's great. OBJ, we're looking for the high yards per catch and the big plays, and I've never wanted to concern myself with how close to 100 passes that OBJ would catch, because it's not going to happen in this share the ball offense. But I don't see Anthony Schwartz doing anything except making the roster because he was a draft pick and he's a project. I don't see him being put in a situation where he could fumble a kick away. I don't see that happening. But I do see him maybe being able to periodically be on the field as a decoy and once in a while to try to utilize his speed. That's as far as it goes for me. I wanted to talk about, before we get out of here, the Olympics, and it was the day after I was talking about, the show after I was talking about the female Filipino weightlifter who won the first gold medal in the history of the Philippines. The greatest, somebody who's acknowledged, Simone Biles, who is acknowledged as the greatest women's gymnast who ever lived, is 24 years old right now and is having mental issues. And I guess it's interesting, when a golfer can't putt anymore, he has what's called the yips. And it's a psychological condition. We talked about Steve Sachs and other people second basemen, who suddenly
Chuck
couldn't
Knobloch.
throw the ball to first. I don't know what they call that in baseball.
Chuck Knobloch.
Yeah, and was another one. And Steve Blass back in '71 for the Pirates, starting pitcher who just couldn't throw the ball. Everything was throwing the ball into the dirt, and it becomes an emotional, psychological thing. They do have a name for it in women's gymnastics, or in gymnastics in general, and it's called the twisties. And what it is the mind loses track of where the body is in the air as far as rotationally. And what happened to her in Tokyo was that she was supposed to do 2.5 revolutions on a vault, and only realized that she didn't know where she was in the process, cut it off to 1.5, and immediately went off of the floor. People thought she was hurt, but what we're finding out is that Simone Biles, the last several months, has been suffering from this condition called the twisties, in which she just doubts her ability now psychologically to be able to perform the stunts that she did. And, again, I really take a compassionate look at this, and I hope at 24 years of age that she, can figure it out. That's the first thing. But I hope she leaves before she hurts herself trying to prove something that she doesn't need to prove. Greatest female gymnast in history. Fact. Leave it at that. There's a new generation coming up, and maybe somebody will surpass her. It happens in most every sport. But the last thing you want to do with the high-flying shit that they do, Dan, is lose track of where you are. I mean, when you're that high, you're doing tumbling runs, you're going to injure yourself severely. And I don't want that. Not for anyone, but not for her.
Gymnastics is more unique than other sports, where by the time you're 24, that's the same as being 38, 39, 40 in basketball or baseball or even football. Your best times are long gone. There's a difference between 24 and 16 when you're figuring out all of this stuff. So,
Well, and the other thing is, it's a hard sport. It's hard on the body. I dated a gymnast when I was a young man, and I know what she went through, and the amount of trauma to the body. I mean, if you followed Mary Lou Retton's career, and I was talking to Rox about this, and I'm sure Stephanie A. Smith has something to say about Mary Lou Retton, but, she had to have both of her hips replaced while she was in her 30s. And that's what you get. And Stephanie A, do you remember Mary Lou Retton?
I remember her being on the Wheaties box. Yes, I do.
What was she doing on the Wheaties box?
She was doing something like this.
Yeah. Well, she can't probably raise her arms anymore to do that. Yeah.
She's a great gymnast.
Yeah.
I
Not as good as
actually
Simone
remember
Biles.
her. I remember her McDonald's commercial because she was driving her free Corvette from Chevrolet. She was given a 1984 Corvette for winning the gold.
Yeah, and I remember her while we're talking about the airplane movies, and then the other one,
The Naked Gun.
Naked Gun. Yeah, she was in one of the Naked Gun movies and won an Academy Award and did flips up to the podium, which was outstandingly funny. But yeah, everybody in that line of work gets old fast, and 1972's Olga Korbut was forgotten in 1976 because of Nadia Comaneci. Nadia Comaneci, by the time she got to 1980, had gained weight. Her center of gravity changed, and it made room for new because it's a young person's sport, and it's not, the human body is just not designed to do that kind of stuff. The last thing I want to talk about is that it's not just the NBA. The Dodgers have acquired Max Scherzer and Trey Turner from the Nationals, the Nationals are a joke, and the Nationals have cleared their payroll completely, getting rid of Scherzer, getting rid of Trey Turner, and then acquiring the Boston Red Sox, then getting Kyle Schwarber from the Washington Nationals. Could you imagine if you're a Washington Nationals fan? You're saying, why don't we just change our name to the Guardians? But who's the beneficiary? Well, of course, who always is. The Dodgers high payroll, the Red Sox high payroll, the New York Mets with their goddamn dishonest, fund guy who is.
Now,
bought
speaking
the
of
team.
changing their names, the Mets should change their name to the Guidos
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
or the Mafiosos.
and
We
the
got a
Mets are-
deal for you, kid.
the Mets were trying to acquire Javier Baez from the Chicago Cubs. It's and what's interesting about that is that Baez has hit 22 home runs and 65 ribbies this year, and he's a shortstop. I thought the Mets had a shortstop. There are people who might argue.
Frankie ain't doing so hot over there.
Oh, I mean that's the thing. Then
So
you
if
have,
you're either produce or they move on.
and we always said somebody has to win the AFC. Listen to me, the American League Central, and the White Sox have just gotten Craig Kimbrell, the closer from the Cubs. He's 33 years old, but he still has 23 saves this season, and that's the closer that they're going to need to get further into the playoffs because they've locked that thing up completely. The Minnesota Twins have done their part for Tony, breaking his heart by trading the only pitcher they had, Jose Barrios, to the Toronto Blue Jays for prospects. All right. And will any of those players become any good? God only knows. I don't know. So that's what's happening in the world of sports. And, I just want to say that we got to keep focused like this guy. Positivity with the Browns. This is the season of hope. Look at him.
This is our episode 4.
Wait a minute. Wait for it. Fire away, fire away. All right. I kind of like him. And you see, his little hands move too. If you look, he can actually move he has digital control, and his arms actually move. See, he can reach out and say, but he can't do a touchdown. He can't raise his arms over his head to signal touchdown. So he'll have to go like, I don't know how he's going to call touchdown. There. That'll be touchdown the Browns. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. I see that Topaz is behind me. He's got to go for a walk, but he also wants his dinner afterwards. So I've got that. I have to chop that up for him. I'll be chopping broccoli and feed myself, too. And thanks to Dan Gilbert's genitals and our really, really good friend, Stay Puff Daddy. Thank you for contributing that music because it's something that I know, obviously, Stephanie A. Smith will never forget. So, and thank you to Stephanie. It's nice seeing you again, Stephanie A. Smith. I mean, I know you have some.
I don't have any strong opinions about baseball. Wake me up when baseball season is over.
Well, it's over.
It's been over since March.
Yeah, my God. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back again on
Thanks for
Monday
stopping by, Key.
to do while Brian there shouts out his girlfriend. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back again all over again on Monday to talk about the Browns training camp and anything new that's happening in the world of sports. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.